We are live.
Are you seeing it?
If it's not in the link that you're looking at, there is another link that is live.
Charlie's got it.
Okay.
Ooh, Charlie, yes, we're good.
Okay,
All
definitely.
right, are folks ready for me to get started? Okay, so we wanted to take a couple of minutes tonight before the regular board meeting to update our public on where we are with COVID-related funding, what we knew at the beginning of the process, what has changed since then, and what we are planning when, believe it or not, we are actually coming to the close of those funding cycles, and we want to be sure that we maximize the dollars that were made available to us for the purposes that they are available. The first presentation we gave publicly was back in July of '21, when the information was newly available, and in at least in one case, the applications for grant funding was available. We were still waiting on some of the others. So there were really three pools of money initially available to us: the Federal Coronavirus and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, or CRSA Act. There was GEAR, or Governor Emergency Relief Fund, in the amount of $7,772 for us. Elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds for just over $399,000. And the largest for us and for all, the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, just over $802,000. And they all differed a little bit on what was allowable to use the funding for and the timeframes in which that funding could be used. So when we looked at the strategies for designating those funds, we considered a number of things. What are we allowed to do with the money, first and foremost? Because at the end of this grant process, just like the end of any process, at the beginning you have to apply for it, and it has to align with the criteria for the application. At the end, we will essentially be audited on, did we spend it on what we said we were going to spend it on within the allowable categories. Also, at the time, we were obviously looking at the needs arising from COVID, and we considered student data, input from staff, and feedback from parents and families. Remember, we had a series of COVID reopening forums in that summer where we gave quite a bit of opportunity for our public to hear about what we were required to do, what we were planning on doing. We solicited feedback, we did a Q&A, we publicized that Q&A, and all that was taken into consideration. We had, at that time, just recently revised our district goals, so we certainly wanted anything we were spending money on, along with qualifying, to align with what we wanted to do as a district. We also wanted to make sure that we were allocating current expenses to the grant so that we could maximize the dollars available. So in essence, you may say it's a little bit of a shell game. It is a little bit of a shell game because we wanted to make perhaps one-time expenses out of the grant that we wouldn't have to support moving forward, and it might be on it temporarily along with to accomplish qualifying. But we were really looking at, again, maximizing those dollars. The timeframes were important too. They had pretty much the same start dates. So when we had this conversation in the first July, one of the applications was already available, the other was not, but they had two different end times. So we wanted to make sure whatever we put in there, we had in the right time frame so we could accomplish it before the grant ended. And then being mindful of those things, being able to sustain those things we put into the grant if the need continued to be. One of those things we'll talk about tonight, actually two of them, our embedded staff developer, along with our AIS math coach, or AIS math teacher, if we wanted to be planful that we could sustain those moving forward, if we wanted to and needed to, once the grant funds had been exhausted. So our initial plan for the GEAR money, remember that was that smallest chunk, that $7,700 chunk. We purchased a portion, year one, of the Discovery Ed curriculum that we wanted to implement, or that's what we planned to do. And then some safety measures, additional camera and security-enabled phone, and that had to do with the secure entryways. We knew we had phones that could operate both doors. This gave an extra added layer because it had to be that camera-enabled phone. So those were the plans for that money. Again, it wasn't a huge chunk of money, And those funds were fully expended as they were originally planned. So we did those things immediately, they were put in place. The second, the medium-sized amount, the $399,000 amount, was the ESSER funding. Our initial plan was to continue the implementation of research-based curriculum, the remaining 2 years of the Discovery Ed, which you saw year one in the prior grant. Summer curriculum development, that very much aligns with our district goals. Implementation of social emotional learning curriculum, and that's a combination of both 5-5 and responsive classroom. Professional development and supports for staff, again, the instructional coach, which I mentioned earlier, and curriculum development time and hours during the summer. And the provision of mental health services and supports, which included our social worker, inclusive of summer hours, and summer hours for our school counselor. These funds, again, were utilized as originally planned, but came in less than we anticipated they would. And I will say in large part, that was the benefits associated with the people. Whenever we fund a person in a grant or even in the budget, we have to assume they're going to take the maximum benefits available to them. And that's not how it played out, which was advantageous to us. It gave us some remaining funds to work with. And we'll talk about that a little bit in a second. The ARPA, again, that was that biggest piece of the pie, the $802,000 and change. And this had a requirement in there, though it was the most amount of money, it was also the most restrictive in what it could be used for, how it could be used. So we had to have things in there that were specific to learning loss, and actually a certain percentage of the funding had to be allocated to that. So that's where we talk about AIS, and we added the AIS math teachers, or AIS teachers specific to math. We know, and other districts know from COVID, we learned a lot, we did a lot in the remote world of learning and teaching, but math is a real challenge to teach in a remote environment. So we knew that was a need for our students. And again, that was, going back to the beginning, evident in our data that we had collected during COVID and leading up to applying for and planning for these funds. Expanded, not so much expanding our summer programming, but targeting what we were addressing, again, based on that learning loss and the data that we had. Professional development, we spoke to already. This also supported social emotional learning. It allowed us to plan for, and we did incorporate the building substitute. What the building substitute helps us with, despite absences alone, is if we're gonna have that coach wanting to work with teachers and they need to pull them out of the classroom, that substitute is available to do that. Wilson Training is a specific targeted reading program, which we had a number of staff members in the past who had been trained in that, and they had since left us due to retirement, so we were able to bring a whole new cadre of folks through that Wilson training, and again, specific to learning loss. And Envision training is directly related to our Envision math program, again, knowing what we saw in our math data and anticipated coming out of COVID. So other things that we took a look at were relative to health and safety. That's a lot of what we looked at coming out of COVID. Staffing to address those needs, and at the onset that included additional cafeteria staff. You remember when we first came back, and when students were remote and some students were in person, we were delivering meals to classrooms, we were delivering meals to homes. So we needed additional staffing to allow us to do that. And the monitor was added to the front office, again, to better monitor who was coming in and entering the building and that they were following protocols. So again, all of these things that we planned for, those funds were utilized as originally planned, but again, and again, related to the benefits, they didn't come in at what we had anticipated. This is a slide directly from the July 21st presentation, some of my common things that I say often when it comes to funding in general, but at that time there still were a lot of unknowns. One of the grant applications, it was the ESSER one, wasn't even available yet. We knew we had how much money we had, we didn't know exactly what we were going to be able to use it for, so we were making some assumptions. My famous parting words, second bullet, we planned based on what we knew to be true at that moment in time. And as I indicated again in July of '21, guidance would change, information would change. We will adjust accordingly and use the same strategy of how we look at expenses and uses for the funding. And it's a fluid plan and it can and will change, and that's really what brings us to this update this evening. Because it has changed. For us, I think for the positive, because there's additional funding that we can access and utilize. So we have made some adjustments to date based on availability of funding and timing and availability of services and products and installation. Chief among them is the initial amendment we did to support the one-time cost of upgrading and enhancing safety with the installation of our new PA system. You folks have seen this. Actually, you probably didn't see this. This is the last one we moved. It's hidden behind the wall. But this is throughout the building. It allows emergency access and communication throughout the building. It's tied into our alarm system. And with this came added exterior improvements as well, including strobe lights and speakers. So if a parent or a community member is approaching the building during the time of an emergency, the same communication we are getting inside the building, they will be getting outside the building. So this piece has already happened. Again, we still have some funds remaining. So what we are poised to do, but we wanted to have a chance to present this to the public and the board as well tonight, is additional amendments to further enhance the security upgrades. All of these are allowable expenses within those categories of the 2 remaining funds. And that would include finalizing upgrades to the PA system. Our focus initially was on all the instructional areas and to make sure those classrooms were set up. Now we're looking at the additional non-instructional areas, includes the main office, the district offices, and all the smaller offices we have down that inner hallway. Is also what we are looking to do through the same vendor is installation of cameras, both interior and exterior. When I say interior, it's in hallways and common areas, certainly not in classrooms. When it's an exterior, it gives us a full 360 view around our building and access to that footage and recall because it's digital. Also included in that camera system would be direct contact with emergency response services, or panic buttons, they're often referred to. There was recent movement out of the governor's office over the summer. Alyssa's law highly recommending that schools have that. Not a requirement, it could become a requirement. We are positioned to put that in place now, tied to this system with funding that is available to us at no cost to the taxpayers. It makes perfect sense to do that. And if we move ahead with this, we have met with the vendor, we have the specs on that. We've checked on supply chain because that is a concern when we know we have a funding source that's ending by a certain date. All is in place if we move forward to do that in the spring and summer of this year. And as I indicated, our goal is to fully expand all funding available. We don't want to leave money on the table. You've heard me say that before too. We have this funding, it's for certain reasons, it can be used for those reasons, and that's what we are proposing. And really looking at maximizing health, safety, and well-being of our students, which is what the COVID funding was intended for. So tonight's presentation, along with the original July presentation, is up on the webpage. Certainly, I welcome any questions. I put out there our BOE comments and ask folks if they have comments that they would like to share with us, to put in the subject line, COVID funding, public and comment. But all of that being said, I will certainly open it to members of the board or members of the public here tonight who are present to ask any questions, make any comments, or feel free to do so at a later date via the email. Do we have anyone watching?
No one watching that.
So we won't have any public comments on BOE comments. Any board members?
Just the information about a few slides back on the spending of the money from 2023, maybe it's one, two, Was that information that's already been secured and bids have been received moving forward? Next
Yeah.
slide, Dr. Long. I'm sorry. Maybe it was not that far back. Whatever's planned for the upcoming.
So,
This
one. So the first bullet, that's already, this one?
Sure.
The cameras, this one's in there.
The cameras, the exterior cameras, is that already
That's,
been?
we've met with the vendors, it's state contract, so we don't have to bid it.
Okay, perfect.
And we did check timeline, because we don't wanna have money run out in 2023 and not have the product here and installed by 2023.
And is that school year or fiscal year?
It is, that one is August 23, Joy?
September 23 it is.
Okay. And again, they all have different start
Sure,
line dates
sure.
to confuse us even further.
You mentioned this, and just for clarifying for my own sake, I saw a lot of things that we did that might be like the purchase of software or the purchase of
Correct.
PA, all that stuff, but for ongoing things, that will just, it'll be discussed as budgets are built out, if there is like.
And it already has been kind of considered, so
Okay.
we know there are positions that we put in here.
Yeah.
We have planned and budgeted from the perspective that if we want and need to continue those positions, past the grant funding, we will be positioned to do so.
Thank you.
Public in attendance tonight wish to make any comment or ask any questions? All right, nobody's still online, is it? Okay, so I think we will bring our public forum to a close then. And begin our regular. So when you're ready,
It's
John.
6:32, so we'll call the meeting to order, please. Can I get a motion to enter public session, please?
I'll make a motion to enter public session.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're in public session.
Hold on, I have to do the same thing though. When I click on the YouTube link from the webpage, it's not.
It's live. There is a 30-second delay, but it is still live. I can see it on YouTube on my end, live.
Is it the same link though from the?
Yes.
It's still the same meeting, yep.
Let's post
I have a viewer.
That might be me now.
it.
I just went back into it, so for the viewer, it's me. All
There
right,
we go, it's working.
okay. We'll go right into roll call then, please.
Mr. Nevins?
Here.
Mr. Squilla?
Here.
Mr. Luke?
Here.
Mr. Rahman?
Here.
Mrs. Sheik?
Here.
Right. Everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Comments from the public on agenda items. Just a reminder for those members in public in attendance, this is one of two opportunities afforded members of the public to comment on or inquire about agenda items. Members of the public also have an opportunity at the end of this evening's agenda to comment on matters not formally noted in the agenda. We appreciate everyone's cooperation. Comments can be made at DOE comments with an S at menands.org. And Dr. Long, do you know if there's any partakers in that?
The last one was July 11th.
We do have 3 viewers now, though. Maybe it's all 3 viewers.
I closed out. I gave up. Wasn't me.
Minutes, can I get a resolution, please?
Be resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District accept the minutes of the November 14th and November 28th meetings.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That resolution passes. Communication to the board from the yearbook club. Everyone's had a chance to read that. Historically, the board has taken out a half-page ad. And historically, the newest member to the board collects the money from the board. So Michelle, be sure to get members to pay. So we can do that. And I'm sure there's wording in years past. Someone has that. I'm sure there's a copy of the yearbook to refer to get wording. So
Oh, yeah.
that's in your vote if you don't mind. We move on to discussion items, superintendent reports and updates, please.
So we are planning a facilities discussion tonight, and we have representatives from CSR, our architects, and Bernie Dominance, our fiscal advisors. And I will set up their presentation for them. I will turn over the floor to them for them to introduce themselves to you. Some of you know them from past conversations, some of you do not, for the benefit of the public. And then once they've done their introduction, we'll let them get started.
Well, Melissa's gonna present. I'm Dan Woods, I'm the president of CSR.
Melissa Redquist with CSR.
And Jason Schwartz from Bernie Downing's office, the financial advisors.
So to give a little bit of a backdrop, and I don't want to steal your thunder, we've been having a lot of discussion about what our facilities needs have been, what they currently are or continue to need be, and to plan to address those in a manner that is timely and appropriate for the district to efficiently run and maintain our facilities, but at the same time responsive to our taxpayers.
Would you like me to stand or am I okay sitting in the small?
Whatever you prefer.
I guess I'll sit. So we just want to go over a quick agenda, what we have to discuss with you today. We'll give a brief overview over our building conditions survey, if you're not familiar with that. We're going to look at some high priority items that the district is looking to move forward with in the near future. Discuss financing, and our representatives from BPD's office will go over that, and then we'll take a look at project scheduling. So building conditions survey overview. We have 2 pages here. And really this is an overview of what we found in the last building conditions survey that is now a couple years old. SCD requires every district to perform a building conditions survey every 5 years. And the numbers that you're seeing on the left are not a quantity, but it's just an item code for them. But this is really our evaluation of your existing building facilities, largely infrastructure related items. So what you'll see that we have identified on the list is largely pavement and windows and roofing, flooring. If you go to the next page, there's a few more there. Some lighting and HVAC items. And really these are just the items that we've identified thus far that are facilities needs for your next large capital project. Moving forward, we've understood that there are some higher priority items that really cannot wait until you can take on a larger capital project. And funding alignment sometimes dictates when you're comfortable moving forward with a larger capital project. So again, BPD's office will walk you through the financing options. We wanted to share the high priority scope items that we've identified here working with your district. And really there are 3 items. These are the sections that have come right out of that building condition survey. There's need for paving replacement, and we'll take a look at the 3 areas that have been identified there. There's a need for roof replacement. We'll take a closer look at that. And there's a need for HVAC replacement, specifically replacement of unit ventilators, which are the floor units that provide ventilation in classrooms. So these are the 3 areas of pavement replacement that are in need. You have on the lighter yellow at the top of your page, the upper parking lot, which is a need for a full depth rebuild. This is an area that was not paved as part of the last capital project. To the left is your entry road entering into your campus. Again, this is need for a full reconstruction. And then as a lower priority, but still higher priority amongst all the building condition items, is repavement of the back rear access road and lower parking lot. Taking a look at the roof, We've identified the different areas here that are in need, and there's really 3 large areas that remain older vintage, out of warranty, and in need of replacement. The larger central original building area, which is mostly to the left, is the area in green. There are areas in red that are a 2002 original roof as well. Those are all identified in the same area there. In the blue is remaining areas of your original roof. This is over your gymnasium and original cafeteria areas and flanking corridors there. And then a lower priority, but still in need of replacement, is in orange here. That's the 1968 original roof that is at the far end of the building. That's the sloped roof area. And then taking a look at HVAC replacement, you can see in yellow, these are the rooms that we are proposing a new unit ventilator replacement. These are the units. You can see the black box in each one of those classrooms. Those are the actual unit ventilators that are in need of replacement. What we're showing here in this graphic, just for your aid in understanding the building, is the rooms that are in blue are currently air-conditioned spaces. So if you look at the remaining unit ventilator locations and understanding there's a future need for providing comfort for students and staff in these rooms, we're proposing that new units moving forward are replaced with air conditioning capabilities. So we just wanted to give you a graphic representation of where you're currently providing air conditioning and the proposed spaces for unit ventilator replacement. So we'll talk about how all that scope turns into a project in a moment, but for now I'll turn it over to Jason, I suppose, to talk about project financing.
Bill, did you have a question before I move into
Just really quick, back to the diagram, just the first floor on the left, the room that was gonna be the pre-K room.
Yep.
Is not currently, that's a new addition. It does not have one of those new HVAC units on it.
It has a new unit, but it does not include air conditioning.
Is it one of the ones that can be modified for air?
I'd have to look into that and get back to you on that.
None
Generally,
of the new construction classrooms have it.
None of the new units on the roof have.
They have,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
What's that?
Thank you, yes.
Good evening, everybody. Jason from Donegan Incorporated. So one of the things that we always look at anytime we're starting to plan for a project is, especially in the tax cap era, is kind of what does our current debt load look like and what opportunities are there. For anybody who's not familiar, we've actually been planning for quite a while that, since coming off the last project, that we do have an opportunity coming up in like 2028, that we have an opportunity to do a larger project with potentially having no tax increase with some retiring debt. But as the discussions have been evolving over the last couple of months, and it was discussed that there was maybe needs sooner than that for some of these high priority items, we said, what opportunities are there out there for us to try to get some of that work done on the time frame needed for the district without impacting the local taxpayers. So this page right here, just as a starting summary point, is all the existing debt service for the district from prior projects, and this is pretty much locked in. We don't have any open projects. We've wrapped up the $8.8 million project at this point. So you see the debt service in the middle of the page there, and then the building aid you're getting back. And really what we focus in on is the blue column to the right there. That's what's coming from the local taxpayers in terms of capital tax levy and what goes into the tax cap exclusion. So if we utilize some of the debt service fund that the district has in the dash box in there, then we basically can have, starting in 24-25, a little bit of a drop off, about 118,000. So that would be our opportunity to fit in, a small project now to capture some of these priority needs without having a tax increase. So going to the next page, this just kind of visually shows that opportunity. So that black line going across the page right now is what's currently built into your budget. And so where we see that dip below the line there is an opportunity to have some new project come on without increasing the taxes past the current level. So then when we take a look at that, we kind of always take a look at our assumptions for our projects. And some of the key assumptions, we're assuming you're going to get building aid back. So any school district in New York State that would vote through capital project, we can get building aid back. For Menands, that's 65.6%. And then we're assuming conservatively right now that bond percentage, which is basically say how much of the project would be aidable, we're assuming 95%. Really, there should be no reason that it can't be 100%, but we're just kind of building in a little cushion there. This whole plan has been laid out assuming a proposition with the May budget vote in May of '23, so that's kind of our timeline there. And there's a few dates there that aren't necessarily all that important as far as approval and closeout and all that. We'll kind of work through that. But the other probably key assumption on this page, number 10, is just the borrowing rates. So we have built in 5% for notes, 6% for bonds, which even though rates have come up on us a little bit over the last year, that's still pretty conservative. If we're issuing bonds or notes today, you might be in the mid 3s and the 4s. So there's still some cushion built in there. Consider we're not talking about bonding for a couple years out. So go to the next slide. So basically, we'll see how it all fits together, but kind of jumping ahead to the answer to the test, the size project that we could do this upcoming May for no tax impact would be $2,360,000. On the right-hand side, you can see out of that, we'd have to set aside $65,000 for capitalized interest, which basically helps us pay some of the debt service until the building aid starts, and then the remaining $2,295,000 would be available to help pay for some of these scope items that CSR just laid out for you. This is just a visual representation of some of those assumptions that we had. So I like to do it here instead of on the assumptions page because you can see it a little bit better. So assuming we voted in May of '23, we've got roughly a year built in for design and SE approval. If we can do it sooner than that, great. But the goal would be to try to get out into that spring of '24 for bidding, and then you'd have the summers of '24 and '25 to complete the construction and get into the long-term financing where that drop-off is on the existing debt page that we had looked at. And then just real quick before we kind of talk about the financing schedule, this is your maximum cost allowance. So this is basically a snapshot at what we're allowed to do in a 5-year period and get aid back on it. So you can see $10 million in construction, $2.2 million of site work and incidentals. So given the size project we're talking about, we really should have no problem staying within those aid ceilings, regardless of the scope, more or less. Okay, so then how do we kind of take this proposed project and layer it back in with your current debt? So again, this would be a $2,360,000 project, not contributing any cash to it, so we would be bonding the full amount. We'd assume that bond would be paid back over 15 years to match how the state pays us back the building aid. So again, when you look on the right-hand side there, the net local share, basically we've structured this so that it would align well with that drop-off in debt, so that it will make it so that this project has no tax impact, but also still leave the opportunity for another future project for additional scope needs down the road. So that is what this project would look like, and then really the key is on the next page showing how it all fits back together with the existing. So again, on the left-hand side in the blue is your existing that we looked at the beginning of the report. Then in the middle of the page there is how this new proposed $2.3 million project would layer in. And then the green on the right-hand side there, as you can see, we kind of maintain that current level of about $320,000 a year. And then the drop-off in 28, you'll see if you went back to the beginning of the report, it's a little smaller now, but still there. So now we basically we're kind of accelerating a little bit of the work, but still maintaining the opportunity for further scope items that are not as critically pressing timing-wise right now. So we can still look at, I think it was around a December of '24 vote that we were talking about could fill into that next larger drop-off. So there's still an opportunity to do some of the bigger picture things that you might want to do down the road, even with doing this project now. Okay, and that's just kind of putting it all back together again. You can see as that line goes across the page there, we stay at or below that. So no additional taxes needed beyond what we're already paying in the current year's budget. And then again, where that drop off is in 28 would be an opportunity for a next project if there's needs at that time. There always are, right?
So with that $2,360,000 budget or estimate that we understand we can absorb a project for, once we remove our fee and other incidentals and project costs, we're left with the estimated construction cost of about $1.9 million. Trying to back into that a little bit, we still have some unknowns, we still need to do some investigative testing to confirm presence of hazardous materials. But we believe that we can provide roof replacement for the 2 larger areas of the roof. We provide the paving replacement for the 2 areas, the 2 larger areas of the paving. And then as many unit ventilator replacements as we can afford until we hit that threshold dollar amount. Taking a look at the project schedule, I want to present with you 2 options. One is having a referendum vote in May, and then our design phase following that. So once you have a referendum vote, if that is approved, we would start our design in June. That runs until October. We would submit to the State Education Department in late October. They have an estimated review time that does get extrapolated out, so we wouldn't anticipate receiving approval on that project until May of '24. That means you're not bidding the project and awarding until June or July of '24, and then construction could follow thereafter. What's concerning to us of this project's timeline is bidding and awarding contracts in June or July is less than desirable. We don't even know that we would get contractors to look at the project at that point in time. They generally like to look at projects late winter, early spring at the latest, and then they get all their work scheduled for that ideal summer construction period. So if you're not hitting the streets and trying to get bidders to look at this project until June, you're probably losing the year. And more realistically, rather than having construction starting in July of '24, you'd probably really be looking at '25 would be more realistic if you stuck with that option 1. What we're proposing is to advance our design phase, enable us to start our design next month. If you could expedite our fee and let us start that work. So our design phase would now run from January until May. You would have that referendum vote, and as soon as that vote is passed, we are ready to submit to State Education Department, and you can see what that does to our timeline here. So now your state education review period runs from June to December. You're coming back out at the end of the year or in early '24 to put that project out on the streets for bid and contract award, and then your construction can start in March or when you're ready to after students are out of the building if you want to start in June, but you're bidding at a much more ideal time to get attractive bidders, both pricing wise and good quality contractors to look at your work.
Essentially, we buy a year earlier
Yes.
to start the work. And the work we're talking about, if left undone, continues to create
Correct.
challenging circumstances to teach and learning, or to drive into the parking lot. And also costs associated with the ongoing.
Yeah. You'd be adding another winter of wear and tear, especially on your pavement and roofs, which is rough.
So with that, I open it up to discussion with members of the board. I know some of you have been sitting with us through these conversations, some of you have not, so may have greater, broader questions. While our experts are here to address and answer those questions, or in the event we need to gather further information and detail to bring it back to you before finalizing the decision.
You had said you thought you might be able to do 2, but not 3 of the roofs. Which one were you thinking?
If you
You
can
would
go
do
back to
that?
the roof plan, it is the larger green and blue areas, so not the sloped roof, but it's pretty much the rest of the roof that wasn't new construction in the last
And is it fair to
project.
say that that's the one roof that has not yet been problematic?
The sloped roof, knock on wood, even though it is vintage 1968, it's been performing quite well. Whereas the green and blue areas are where you have, current leaks and are problematic.
Is this conservative? I mean, I know you said we still have to go through the design phase and do testing and things like that. If all that comes back, really good, is there a chance we might be able to get this in, or?
Certainly,
Probably
there's a chance the sloped roof could come back into play, or looking at the asphalt pavement. We can design all of these areas, and because we're doing that, it probably makes sense for us to do that and just identify them as a bid alternate, so that when the project is put out to contractors, they're bidding on the base bid of what we assume is green and blue, and they'll give us pricing for the additional, which in this case is the orange. If the project funds will allow it, then we award that work as well.
Are there like any other materials that we can use that maybe, for example, reflective? I think there must be energy savings some other ways, even though it's outside, but.
We can look at a TPO membrane, which is a white membrane, which definitely has a little bit of more reflective properties to it. it's not reflective in like a mirror type coating. For the type of roofs that you have, you'd really want to go with either EPDM, which is a traditional black membrane, or that white TPO. But we can explore different options in that regard, yeah.
No, it's good too when you're conditioning more spaces, if you're adding more air conditioning and that type of roof, it does perform a little better.
Is it more expensive?
A little more expensive, it doesn't have quite the lifespan as the black EPDM, so there are drawbacks.
I assume it's not, I know EPDM's been around forever, it's used a lot, so I assume it's also more.
Do you partner with any other agencies or, I guess who is it on to see if there are other incentives that we can pursue, that are out there for some of the work that's being done? Like, for example, for the ventilators, if we get energy efficient ones, will that be down the road or like, oh, we can apply for whatever assistance on the purchase of energy efficient?
Yeah, our engineers, they all, they look at NYSERDA grants, they look at, power authority grants, and there's generally for a project of this size, if it's something that fits in what they call kind of a flex spec program.
Yep.
You get rebates on that, you get some money out of those kind of things as well. But yeah, the engineers will look at what's available. It does help too, if the district has anybody that we work with in terms of grant writing. A lot of times districts will pull people in like that, try to look for a specific grant.
I think you mentioned two sections of the lot, two larger sections?
Yep.
Which are the two larger sections?
And maybe not larger, the two that are in yellow, that light yellow,
Yeah, there you
top, the upper,
Fair enough.
and yep, so it's the upper lot and the entry road that we would say are kind of our base bid. And then because it's less used and in maybe better condition or could, wait for a deferment for the next capital project, we would say defer on that lower parking lot. Again, we can identify it as a bid alternate.
And to that end, then we've advocated from other sources to potentially have that work done. We'll remain optimistic that that will come to fruition.
We're just trying to be realistic to make sure that with the funds that the district has allowed in this project, that we can tackle some of these higher priority items, get some of the roof, some of the paving, and some of the unit ventilators replaced.
So this whole thing happens during the summer when the school is off, or?
We try to do construction work during the school year as much as possible, but our construction management team will look at exploring opportunities to let contractors work during the school year if it's allowable by the district. Sometimes roofing is yeah.
Well, and I'll speak a little bit to the last project because we had a couple of different things going on. We had additions that were happening completely outside of current construction. We were able to do some of that work during the day. We were actually able to do 2, sometimes 3 shifts. The more shifts you can do and the more you can have people here, the quicker the work goes. There were other pieces that we did, like the wiring, that we couldn't have that being done when kids were in the building, so that was second shift work.
So like the ventilators would be the same thing.
Unit ventilators, we could potentially identify a break week.
Right, like February break.
So, if things come out and the timeline works out, it could be a spring break week or something like that. I don't know if they would get through all of them in that time period, but it could allow us to expedite certain locations, if that was beneficial to the overall time frame. But getting them in spring break, if you're not going to need them after the fact, it might be better to wait till summer anyway.
Biggest thing from a contractor's perspective is to mobilize once, so you wanna make sure we can find a period of time when we get them in here and then let them continue working and not keep coming back, so the prices are low also. The availability of contractors can stuff it too.
But I gotta mention, I just wanna throw it out there, and we can talk about it a little more as things move along. Maybe not everyone is as concerned with the parking lot work as the building work. So if the project lends itself to getting all the roofs done and all the ventilators replaced and foregoing a parking lot, we'll have that number and we'll be able to decide.
Yeah, you'll have that option, like Melissa was mentioning, if we create it with bid alternates, you have the ability to kind of pick and choose. They'll actually be separate contractors, most likely.
Okay.
So, you can choose to award one particular prime contractor
Whereas generally you might see a general contractor and both roofing and pavement would fall underneath them. We could actually identify a paving contractor and a roofing contractor, and say you're getting completely different values from both of them.
What you'll wanna do here is that's how you get the most bang.
Those are a common type of work that we would have out as a prime.
Thank you.
Anything else from members of the board? So the building condition survey, which as Melissa indicated, is something we in every district go through every 5 years. We're going into year 3 of that. It was December we did it, I believe. We were first on the list. Clearly identified some things that we are going to need to tackle, either in the short term or in the long term. I think our circumstances, and Mr. McCormick is here, and I'm sure he can speak to it, have dictated there are some problematic areas, and they're the areas that you saw. There has been some pretty significant leaking, which is requiring ongoing and consistent attention and repair. Unit ventilators, we've had Train, who is our service provider here, quite a bit. Pleased to say, after a pretty lengthy process last month, we got everybody to a pretty good place. But they're 2002 vintage unit ventilators, you know? Just like your home, you need to take care of what you have in order to sustain it. In the parking lots, though some folks might put it at a lower level, is the bane of my existence every day when I pull in here. So I think these are items that need attention sooner than later, and we get to a kind of a point of no return, if you will, if we continue to dump money into fixing something and not repairing it. We are well positioned using the debt service fund, and correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, Jason or Melissa. We are well positioned to be able to give the attention needed to those areas to a pretty large extent with no difference in impact to our taxpayers at this point in time, and still keeping ourselves poised for 2028, knowing we have the rest of the needs on the building condition survey. Oh, and by the way, continued increasing enrollment and kids need space. There will be needs in 2028, and we leave the ability in place, again, being sensitive to our taxpaying public, to move forward with what we need at that time and be planning for. So it's very strategic, addressing our immediate needs and planning from a design phase, but also from a fiscal perspective to be prepared for 2028. So really what I need some guidance and direction from the board on tonight is, are we prepared with moving ahead with the project discussed, knowing we have more details to work out, but also sharing for the newer board members as well. There is a lot of timeframes to adhere to and logistics involved in moving through a process and getting the appropriate approval, including voter approval, which is why we're having this conversation now and not later in the year. So I guess I'm going to ask 2 questions and not ask you for an answer up front. The first question is, are we, based on what we saw tonight, comfortable with moving forward towards a May vote for a project? That would be question number 1, that would have no impact for taxpayers and address our immediate needs. Question 2, and we may need a little bit more discussion around this, is would we consider doing the expedited design work to be able to essentially start that work a year early? We do have some information that was provided to us we aren't presenting tonight. There was a lot to digest tonight that I can share with the board in the update around that design work, so I will not ask for an answer to that tonight. What I will say, however, is, I lost my train of thought. Oh, the design work, that if we have it done now, and if for some reason we didn't get community support at the May vote, we're still going to need that design work. At some point, that work is going to need to get done. And that design work, once voter approved, does fold in the project. So I'll go back to question number 1. Are we prepared with moving forward with the steps we need to take the project to address the items outlined tonight to our voters in May?
You know, the project is like a separate item on the budget, right? It's like our regular budget.
Different referendum, just like a election of a board member.
And you would still have to go through the process of passing it for a resolution down the line and prepared for that actual
Right.
not tonight.
No,
Yeah, right, so the board will probably adopt a resolution for that proposition at your March board meeting. At least 45.
And just to clarify for the other board members, so the planning phase, because we're trying to move it up, so it would be part of the project plan. So if we didn't do the design work until after the vote, it gets folded in and we get paid on it. We do the design work up front to have a timeline how we buy it, and then if it goes down, we still have to pay for it. It's gonna come out of our budget instead of getting aided back as part of the capital plan. That's the risk in doing design work.
On that same end, though, the benefit is the district spending money monthly, weekly on repairs, upgrades, fixing gaps, whatever it is. That money is just gonna be spent. If we wait another, it's gonna be wind up another year of work. It'll be another year of money being spent on repairs versus getting it voted early on, paying for the upfront cost of the design and moving forward and getting things repaired.
Right, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, I was making sure they understood
Yeah, no, yeah.
what's the risk in
it's not to mention the escalation factor of probably your bid prices that you'd be receiving a year later.
Right. I think the other important historical piece of information is our community has consistently been incredibly supportive of us as a district, even beyond our regular budget, and our, the most recent project passed overwhelmingly with 74%, which is pretty consistent with our, pass rate for our budgets.
Right, I think it's unlikely that it would get voted down. Our budgets don't get voted down. And like we've talked about, you know, we're not asking for
A turf
gold
field.
plated desks, right? It's like replace the roof because it's leaking. Like, I mean, that's like a pretty reasonable at, you know, no increase to the taxpayers, so.
No increase in cost.
Complete as a sign.
Yeah, the taxpayer's not overly concerned about roof work that work. It's no increase in the tax.
Right.
So let's make the district happy.
Do we package that as like a nice marketing tool?
Yes, we do.
I just wanna know that, like, is a voter coming in, well, there's gonna be voters that come in early. I haven't heard a single thing about this, right, but still,
Yes, we do.
as long as it's.
Yeah,
But
actually,
we
the,
send out communications, I mean, the last project, you know.
actually, the
we'll
newsletter
go
we
out.
did for the last building project that was done by our BOSI's communications team at the time ended up being an award-winning, publication.
And they go out in advance of the vote to let
Lot of
people know.
parents complain about the pavement, the access road, so nobody.
I know.
They pave those potholes every day.
I'm fine with moving forward with the project. And honestly, I'm fine with the option 2 timeline, but if you're not asking for that tonight,
Well, if folks are comfortable giving it tonight, I'm okay with the
we
answer,
can have more
but
discussion. We can wait on that. I don't know, can we wait on that?
yes,
We have
we have an
until
early January.
January, so next month's meeting.
Do you guys have an opinion now, or do you?
I'm fine with both, personally.
Yeah, same, I just wanted to let them weigh in first. because
Let's
I've been in
move
meetings.
forward.
As I always say, you are more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but don't feel obligated to do so. I do want to, while they're here though, we are acknowledging some donations later on in the agenda, and I would like to, while they're here, publicly acknowledge CS Arch for their generous donation to our families in need with some much needed items.
You're very welcome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there anything else to that presentation, Dr. Lynn?
There was not.
All right, I move the meeting forward to business matters, non-action items, business office, non-action item warrants.
Flip to the next page.
Was there any questions on the warrants? No? Business office action items. Contracts for approval. 1 second while I refresh.
Thank
So I'm up. Business office action items, contracts for approval. Let me see one there. Can I get a resolution, please?
Thanks. I just wanna, now because I know it's there. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education, and the Menands Union Free School District hereby approves the following contracts for the 2022-2023 school year. That would be Johnson Controls, Plan Service Agreement. Virtual.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes. I just got kicked out. You want to read the next one and just move on?
Yep, the next item is, business office action items progress report.
Is it the internet or is it the?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Thank you. Everyone's got
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District approve of November 2022.
I asked if there's any questions, but all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That resolution passes. Your tax collector's report? Tax collector's report, business office action items. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District accept the tax collection report as submitted. The affidavit to be signed by each board member. Enclosed for the information of the board is the town of Colony 2022 collection report and affidavit of collector Michelle Ability, town of Colony of the warrant in 2,621 about 6,942,218 and 460,000 was 403. Collection report as submitted. The affidavit to be signed by each board member.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The resolution passes.
And I would remind you, you all have to sign that.
Before you move it, sign it.
I will come around.
Can I just ask a question? What happens to the uncollected piece?
The County of Albany will make us whole at the beginning of April. They will, anybody that didn't pay it will get added to their property tax with an additional penalty, and we will get the net back to us usually in the first 10 days of April.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be made whole.
I'm gonna have Courtney finish reading the agenda, and just read the resolution, and Charlie just second them, and let's move on until we can get the computer back working. I think we let off with
Alright, okay, we have business office action items, donations. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District accept the donations as listed in the attached document.
Can I play that video?
Oh, yeah.
Is that the phone call?
Is it up on your, oh, the
Can
tablet
you
away.
give us some background?
Yeah.
This is very fun.
I seem to be doing the same.
what I
So,
was doing, but I could-
I think that's board docs and stuff that's
Working on that
stuff, it's not the internet.
so if in the event we can't see it, we have received a phone call. One of our clerical staff answered the phone, and a young lady asked, and little unbeknownst to us, was recording this for TikTok, which I cringe a little bit at first when I say this, but this is a good story. Who was calling to inquire about paying off our school lunch debt. It was a former student who had heard that we had some demographic changes in the district and that we had a high number of students who were free and reduced lunch. Sabrina, who answered the phone, didn't quite understand it first, so that's kind of the TikTok if you see it. And come to find out that she wanted to pay off all of our existing lunch debt. So we had further conversation with her, we apparently became TikTok sensations. And we did receive that check in the mail just a few days ago, paying off our entire student lunch debt. And if board docs gets exact back to letter, then we'll play that for you before you leave tonight.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes.
Board of Education action items, resolution to amend the Menands Union Free School District 403B retirement plan. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the resolution to amend Menands retirement plan for the amendment of section 5.5 of the plan dealing with hardship withdrawals.
Other questions on that?
Do you want to explain it, Dr. Long, because I'm not sure this was in an update or anything.
I think it was in the update, but I guess I didn't upload the update to the board
Okay.
webpage, so I'll let Joanne talk about it actually.
This is something that's required by our 403, our administrator, or third-party administrator. There's been some changes that allow, that continue to allow hardships and actually made it less restrictive, and it's just a formality that we have to approve. Everybody's doing it, everybody that has a 403 plan, and it just has to do with the hardships and they make it less restrictive.
Okay, very good.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes also.
Alright, number 6, policy, final reading of policies. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the policy committee, approves the final reading of policies A through T as listed.
Listed. These are finals of the last month's, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine, as listed.
Does anyone, oh wait, sorry.
Second.
Anyone have any questions on any of these?
No, I'm good too. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes.
And again, kudos to the policy committee. This is our last round of final readings from a full policy review. Not that we won't continue to review and adjust some outstanding policies that we need to circle back to, but a very heavy lift, and thank you for all involved.
Item 7, personnel matters. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District grant tenure to Michelle Irvin in the special education tenure area effective February 1st, 2023.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes.
And Michelle very much wanted to be here tonight, but she's tutoring students.
Very good. Thank you to her and what she does for the district.
Thank you, Mrs. Irvin. B, revised personnel agenda. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District approves the updated personnel agenda items A through E.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes.
C, updated club and sports advisors for the 2022-2023 school year. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District approve the following updated club and sports advisors on the attached sheet for the 22-23 school year in accordance with the MAP contract. All hours will be submitted in accordance with the time sheet.
Just so you know what those changes reflect, because you may not still be able to pull it up, with some adjustments based on who actually did first trimester clubs and an additional club for second trimester.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes.
The homework tutor club. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District approve the following homework club tutor for the 2022-2023 school year, Brian Ross.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes. Thank you. Mr. Wood.
Number 8, superintendent program recommendations, CSE, CPSE recommendations. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District hereby approves the CSE, CPSE recommendations as submitted.
Sure.
Dr. Lundell, one person who is going to another elementary school, what was that?
So we have, I would say, not the full programming that other districts have. Some students who may have a greater need than we can address with programming here. When that happens, we look at options for the least restricted environment, which typically least restricted environment, and Audrey, jump in here if I'm wrong, is a home school district or a public school. So we, sometimes it will be a greater need than that, it will be a private school. For instance, a St. Coleman's or other private schools that we and other districts work with, but we try to work very closely with other local public schools that if they have a program in a public school setting that meets the needs of the child, we will do it cross-country. Did I do okay out there?
Yeah.
Good night.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes. Mine is just coming on, but I'm lagging.
Substitute teachers are cleared. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union School District approve the substitute teachers in the attached document for the 2022-2023 school year.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes.
Right, next is student matters, 296, pre-K through 8. And number 10 is administrative updates, principal's comments.
So, on December 9th, we had our second day of activities. We have worked hard over the last couple of years to offer two in the fall, so that opportunities for parents exist for the teachers. We'll acknowledge from the students in the first quarter in their progress report, and we continue to make those opportunities available in person or virtual, depending on some of our families. It just simply works better for them to meet the teachers virtually. So we had those on Friday afternoon, and the 8th grade actually was able to offer a big sub during that time as well. So some of our 8th graders stayed and did a little bit of fundraising for some of the 8th grade activities that we have coming up. School picture week update today. A special thank you to the PTA for soliciting parent volunteers. We had a couple of volunteers come in today. They're able to visit the classrooms and make sure the students get up, have their picture taken, with some crazy streamers that may happen. And ensure that anybody who wants a picture or somebody who missed pictures today is able to have that done. As far as our PTA continues to be busy, not only fundraising for many things that we do good for our students, but also offering different opportunities for our students. We just wrapped up the Ronald McDonald House Charities Readathon. We have a nice level of participation. Thank you to Courtney for chairing that again this year. We also had our PTA yard sale, which was incredibly well attended. We had a nice and warm ride. A little bit of a panic about traffic backup, but it all made its way through. We're very lucky to have some volunteers who come, work with us, get it in, get it out, checked out lots and lots of people. So that was incredibly successful again this year. Last week we had our Panera Dine Out. A special thank you to our teachers. I think we had over 30 orders from our teachers for lunch that day. Tammy McNamara was kind enough to scoot up to Panera and get it for us. And I think even maybe the second month something was left out. And Heather Arizona plays a big role in making it happen. So we had that as well. And then last but not least, we had our middle school fun night, which almost didn't happen. A special thank you to Vanessa and Bill for hosting that, putting it together. We had close to 80 or 60 middle schoolers out of our probably 90 attend. I will tell you, all you have to do is put food, snacks, pizza, give them a basketball, some markers, and really they came to hang out. They had a great time. So that happened as well. Our trimester 2 clubs are up and running beginning this week. We have the first day of drama tryouts for our youngest students, and we have a ton of opportunities again, lots and lots of interest. We went ahead and used the lottery system this time, where everybody could sign up, whether you were able to get on as soon as they went live or not, and then did a lottery system to get kids in. And I think we had a lot more people sign up knowing that we were doing a lottery system, and we didn't have to jump on right as soon as it went live. So that was very successful. Thank you to Trish O'Connell for doing that. She really kind of orchestrates all of those things. And then last but not least, our spelling bee is this Thursday. Students take a qualifying test within their classrooms, and the top 2 spellers of each class then go on to our school-wide spelling bee. We'll participate with that. Mrs. Purdy will host the spelling bee, and the winner of that competition goes on for a regional spelling bee, which will be later this spring. So we wish our students the best of luck. shouldn't be a big deal. They study, they work hard, so we look forward to them on Thursday. Thank you. Oh, I apologize.
No,
One last thing. No, I apologize, and that came on after I had to put it up. So Tech Valley was here in December as well. It is a service learning project. The kids from Tech Valley come over. They set up games that are based in curriculum. I think of the periodic table game that they play with the kids. It's open to our 7th and 8th graders. They come in. The students run all the games with our students. It really is a nice opportunity for the kids to not only work together, get to know some high school kids, but then really just start to, before they even know it, really start thinking about some of the different high school opportunities that they have. And Tech Valley works closely with Mrs. Vandenberg to make that happen each year for our 7th and 8th graders.
Great, thank you very much. Assuming superintendent comments. Thank you.
Superintendent.
Few items. As the board, most of the community knows, we have always had a good working relationship with our Menands, the village of Menands and our police department. We had entertained some conversation a few years back about making more formal that partnership with our Menands Police Department. We had a public forum at that time to elicit feedback from our community about their thoughts and wonderings about that. And at that point in time, we chose not to move forward with it. Some things have changed since then around safety at schools, and unfortunately, events continue to unfold at schools that have rekindled, in many ways, that conversation. So we have been having some discussion with our village police department and village board around what that might look like if we chose to move forward with that. And we will be sending out information to let the public know that we are revisiting that conversation, and we'll be holding a forum prior to our January 9th board meeting. So much like tonight, we can share the information, provide an opportunity where questions or comments can be asked, and then put out some time for public feedback via our BOE Commons webpage. So that one, I think we should plan an hour for. I know there are people who have strong opinions about that, both in favor of it and some with concerns about it, and I want to provide ample time for them to be able to hear what we have to share and share their thoughts and questions that they may have. So that will be January 9th at 5:30 prior to the regular board meeting.
Will it be in a different space?
Yeah, we'll have to figure out the space.
Okay.
I'm leaning towards the cafeteria versus the gym. The sound loses a little bit in the gym. We just gotta figure out some line stuff, or CYC stuff. So, committee memberships, we had done some direct outreach for members of our health and wellness committee, because there are certain aspects of the community at large that we need to include in that. And wanted to do outreach to parent participants and community participants who have experience, both professional and personal, in that realm of health, safety, and wellness. And I'm happy to say everybody we have asked to participate has agreed to do so. There is a doodle out there now. Those of you who know what a doodle is, to schedule a meeting for early January, and we should have that identified before we head out to the break. We have not been as fortunate on our Police for Policy Committee and Audit Committee. We have put in the last 2 Friday updates that we are seeking folks, and we actually did a separate messenger trying to encourage parents to consider participating in either one of those. So far, we have no takers. We will continue to try again through the end of the calendar year. The good news is we have 2 former parents who are members of the policy committee and 1 former parent who is the member of the audit committee that we are trying to replace, and they have all indicated though they would like to see current parents have the opportunity to participate. If no one chooses to do so, they will continue. Door policy committee. Festival of Trees. I want to thank the St. Patrick's Club, Menands St. Patrick's Club, for coordinating that. Mrs. Canavo and I purchased a tree on behalf of our school. Our students decorated over the week prior and leading up to the ornaments that Mrs. Canavo had brought in. And then we invited folks to join us from 2 to 3 last Sunday to decorate the tree with our blue and gold Menands school tree topper made by our board game club and all the ornaments that were created by our students, and I have to say, I think it looks pretty good. If you haven't had a chance to visit, all the trees look great. Before I get into my last one, I'm gonna add one. I have the webpage posted up here. Billy, can you read the banner from there? What does it say?
District resources. Thank you, yes. I'm sorry. I missed that.
And that is also our new branding from the new letterhead that we recently got through our communications department. So slight update, but
Thank you.
identifying us too as a pre-K through 8 district. And last but not least, I'm finding it hard to believe we are already at our December board meeting. So for each of you, I have a small token at your seat. It does contain notes if that impacts anybody. And if it does to the extent that you can't accept it, I'm sure Mr.
Take her off, Grant.
Show people.
Wish you all a very happy holidays.
Thank you very much, Dr. Long. Me too.
Try the TikTok.
You have it as a favorite up there. Now your web bar is locking it. Oh, to the right.
Okay, there it is. All right, ready?
Hi, I'm a former student and I was wondering if there was something I could do, like pay off student lunch or something like that for the school? You can pay it off? Yeah, like the student lunch debt? What's your first and last name? My name is Bunny. Do you remember you have school lunch day? I just, and then honestly too, if you guys like could put some holiday lists and stuff together, it would be great. Online that you guys have like a high percentage of homeless students? Yeah. Are you saying you're willing to pay off like other students? Is that what you're saying? Correct. All of it for the whole school. Oh my gosh. I'm thinking that you're calling for your lunch debt, and I'm like, wait, wow, you still remember that you have lunch
And you said that just came in too, right?
You got the check.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you, Dr. Long.
Oh,
Miscellaneous?
I guess, yeah.
Is there miscellaneous? Anybody have anything to share? Opportunity for board members to suggest something for the next discussion item, the next meeting, or anything that you want to share? This Saturday is a huge home CYO basketball game. It's here at Menands School. If you have a chance, come see kids play.
Okay.
Approximately 75% of the kids in the Menands CYO program go to Menands. It starts at 8, 9. That's a weird day. I have to bring my daughter to a bus that she's taking to Staten Island for a track meet at 4 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
So my day was going to start much earlier than anyone else's. But here, we're here 9 to 3 Saturday. Age groups, 3rd, 4th graders, 5th, 6th graders, 7th graders. I did see Menands trade. It looks awesome, by the way. Decorations were great. What grade made those?
Primarily K-5.
Ooh, very nice. If you have a chance, go to the park and look at all the trees. The library did a tree also, and their tree topper is a book. It was really good. I don't really have anything else. It's the end of the holidays, the end of the year. It's moving right along. If there's no other miscellaneous items from boards of members of the board, we'll go to public comment. During the public comment sessions, members of the community may address the board on agenda and non-agenda items. The board president may limit remarks of individual speakers to a reasonable time. Speakers must identify themselves on the topic on which they would like to make remarks. You can make remarks at BOE comments with an S at menands.org. Does anyone have anything? Yes.
I just have one comment. We would like to publicly acknowledge the service Andy Cohen
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Very nice. Is there anything else? Are there any people online, Dr. Long, that DOE comments? Or not? I'm sorry.
No, no comments on my end.
We'll make a motion to adjourn, and then we'll enter an executive session.
I'll make a motion to adjourn public session.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are out of public